Before I begin this video, I'd like to give a quick shout out to Zero the Hedgehog for designing my thumbnail portrait. Dude, you did a great job. I haven't looked this good in, honestly, ever. I mean, have you seen the way I look? This guy does animated sketches. Go check out his YouTube channel and his Twitter. Both links are in the description. Please go check him out and show him some love. That's Zero the Hedgehog. Thanks again, my dude. You rock. Now let's continue with the video. Back in the 1990s, I was a kid who had a Sony PlayStation, so you know what that means. I played the crap out of the old Crash Bandicoot games. Back then, if kids weren't talking about Mario or Pokemon, they were talking about Crash. At least until about 1998, when kids started talking about a new challenger entering the arena, and if you entered a cheat code at the title screen of Crash 3, you could unlock a demo of said challenger's first game. Greetings, people. 'Tis I, 480 Volts, and today we are looking at Spyro the Dragon, the debut of everyone's favorite purple dragon hero. The game was developed by Insomniac Games. The idea to use a dragon came from an artist by the name of Craig Stitt. I'm making a point to reference him for the same reason his name may sound familiar to you. He did some work as a zone artist in Sonic the Hedgehog 2 for the Genesis. Don't believe me? Look at the credits for Sonic 2. Bam! The game was released for the Sony PlayStation in 1998, and just like Crash 3, you can enter a cheat code on the title screen to unlock a demo of that game. It's actually interesting that these two franchises teased each other like that, because this connection would go beyond just demos and everyone comparing the two to each other. If you look at the history of Crash and Spyro throughout the years, they basically share the same rise, fall, and rebirth, as it were. Both franchises started out strong with a trilogy of games, then sort of wandered into different territories. Their original creators sold their licenses, fell victim to what many would consider to be questionable titles, and in recent years had their first three games remade from the ground up with modern graphics and refinement, all while preserving what made these games special in the first place. Today we're taking a look at the very first game, simply titled Spyro the Dragon, and let me just go ahead and warn you guys, I have a lot of memories with this gem. Besides the unlockable demo in Crash 3, I had another demo featured in a Toys R Us sample. Jeez, there's a name for the past. During the summer of 2000, my brother rented the full game from Blockbuster. Jeez, there's another name from the past. My mom didn't want us rotting our brains away with TV and video games all day and only allotted us a small window of time on the PlayStation after we did our chores, the rest of the day being ours to spend as we pleased. My days during that week, or however long the rental period was, consisted of running around outside, touching grass, kicking rocks, playing with dirt, showering off in the sweat and grime, and then sipping a cold root beer made by my dad while getting lost in the world of Spyro. Life was good in those days. It was a simpler time, to be sure. But the question is, how does this game hold up after 25 years? Well, let's take a look. The story takes place in the world of dragons. During a TV interview, the dragon starts smack-talking this dude named Nasty Nork. Yeah, this beefy bro right here. Nasty gets more than a little irritated at the dragon's low opinion of him and casts a magic spell, turning all of them into statues of crystal, save for one dragon, our little purple hero Spyro. I guess the spell, which was aiming for the tall towering titans, missed our short young protagonist and he sets off across the 5 dragon worlds, or is it 6? To save the dragons, they kick Nasty's butt. And, well, that's basically the gist of this plot. Not very deep, I must say, but at least the game doesn't waste any time. Oh, and if you're wondering why we should even care about the dragons, considering they kind of brought it on themselves, the reporter does make a casual remark about the fact that Nasty is apparently creating an army by turning gems into minions, so we can assume he was planning to do something bad, I guess? Whatever, we're dragons, we do what we want. The game's atmosphere is very light-hearted, although there are plenty of whimsical set pieces like castles, fairies, and wizards and such. Yet at the same time, we also have cannons, planes, and even machine guns in one stage, unless you're playing the Reignited Trilogy remake, which changes it to paint guns. Whatever, we kids who played it in the 90s turned out just fine. Don't see the need to censor things, especially if you're okay with the Peacekeeper's homeworld, which has cannons. Just saying, make it make sense, but I digress. The idea of playing as a young dragon whose only reason for surviving Nasty's spell is the fact that he's much smaller than the big stupid grown-ups was actually pretty appealing to me as a kid, and I imagine other kids who played the game at the time. You'll be saving dragons throughout the whole adventure. The game continuously makes fun of the big guys by having them brag about their size and strength, while Spyro just sorta laughs at them as they were the ones who needed rescuing, not him.
Watch the dragonfly, Spyro. His color indicates his power. When he eats butterflies, he stays strong. Like me.
Sure.
And some of these dragons are quite the old-timers who like to ramble on and tell stories, much to Spyro's dismay.
Thanks for releasing me. It seems like I've been trapped in here since I was your age.
No.
Why, I remember...
Gotta go.
Spyro's quite impulsive in this game, wanting to get straight to the nitty-gritty, with the older dragons often telling him to exercise caution and patience.
Where's Nasty Nork? I'll torch him.
Keep your horns on, Spyro! You have much to learn first.
Spyro's basic gameplay controls are as follows. He can walk around with the analog stick or the D-pad for those of you like me whose PS1 controllers didn't have analog sticks, jump with the X button, can glide for a short distance by pressing the X button twice, can drop straight down mid-glide with the triangle button, can slow the glide down by holding back on the D-pad or analog stick, charge at high speed holding the square button while steering with the D-pad or analog stick, and can breathe fire with the circle button. Oh, and you can press R1 or L1 to roll around on the ground. A move so useless it was dropped from the following games, although it's worth noting that it is in all 3 games in the Reignited trilogy, so yeah. Spyro's walking controls feel similar to the way Mario walked around in Super Mario 64, only much smoother. Still, he can be a bit stiff at times. Charging isn't too hard to control, and for long stretches of terrain is the ideal way to move about in this game. If you ever see gameplay footage and notice the player holding down the jump and charge buttons causing Spyro to continually skip around and are wondering why they do that, that's just something we did. Can't explain why we did it, only that we did it, and still do. Gliding is a tad on the disappointing side, as I'd rather play as a dragon who can soar through the skies, but it does make sense with Spyro being little and his wings not having fully developed yet. And if it was possible to fly everywhere, there wouldn't be much of a challenge traversing this world, and we do get glimpses of what it's like to fly around as you please in the form of these special bonus levels, but well, I'll get to that later. Spyro's flame breath only extends about 1.5 feet or so, but it's effective in taking out enemies or breaking open treasure chests. The camera has full rotation controls, unlike Crash, which was fixed in one direction, or Super Mario 64, which boasted of full control but was utter garbage. This one is far from perfect, but works well most of the time. There are 2 modes, passive and active, and you can switch between the 2 at any point with the pause menu. While in passive mode, the camera sort of meanders to whatever direction Spyro is currently facing, in no kind of hurry. It'll get there eventually. While in active mode, the camera does its best to rotate with Spyro. It doesn't always work and can still get blocked by walls and stuff, but certainly gets to where you're facing a lot faster. That being said, I never use active mode. It can get a little dizzy when you're making sharp turns, and the simple fact is I'm just used to passive mode. Sure, it may take a little time for the camera to adjust, but if you start charging, the camera will quickly center itself behind Spyro. So if all else fails, tap the square button. In the meantime, you can turn the camera freely with the R2 or L2 buttons. Pressing and holding the triangle button while at a standstill causes the camera to zoom in behind Spyro's head, and you can use the D-pad or analog stick to look around you. Officially, Spyro is considered a platformer, but to be honest, there's not a whole lot of that going on. There are a very few select sections where you do have some legitimate 3D platforming, but most of it amounts to trying to span big chasms by gliding. This ain't no Mario 64. That said, the level design is quite good and has a heavier emphasis on exploration. These stages are wide open spaces with lots of room to move around in and explore. It's a far cry from Crash's tight corridor style of platforming, which I never had a problem with, and I wouldn't say Spyro's style is necessarily better, it's just a different world altogether. For one thing, the stages aren't terribly linear, especially in the beginning. Like, in one of the first stages you can enter Stone Hill, the exit portal is just a mere few seconds away from the entrance with literally nothing to stop you from going there except the curious desire to explore the rest of the stage to see what it has to offer. A lot of stages are like that. The end portal is rarely ever that close, but it's still not too far off. There's just a whole playground to romp around through before jetting out of here. Some of the later stages are a bit more linear, but even they feel more sandboxy. As for the platforming itself, like I said, it basically centers around gliding. This doesn't sound like much, but with this style of level design, it actually makes for a more interesting experience that can only be defined, I think, as Spyro. More often than not, you'll be resting on some vantage point and will see some chunk of land off in the distance that screams, "Over here!" And your insatiable curiosity will drive you to get there by whatever means you can. Maybe the path eventually leads there. Maybe you need to find some higher ground so you can make the glide. Maybe you should just attempt to glide here and now.
Hey, what's on the other side of that river?
Why don't you glide there and find out?
I gotta say, there's few things more satisfying than making a long glide to a faraway plane against the glorious landscapes that make up this game's world. Stages like Cliff Town, Ice Cavern, Alpine Ridge, High Caves, Treetops, and Lofty Castle contain perfect examples of this feeling. And look at this field in Stone Hill. There's only a few collectibles here and they're all spread out pretty far apart, so this whole thing looks kind of empty. It's literally just a big green field for you to run around in. Who doesn't want a backyard like this? Nobody? No? Just me? I'm the only one who likes to touch grass? Okay. Stages themselves are filled with enemies to defeat, dragons to rescue, and treasures to collect. Treasure comes in the forms of colored gems, looking not unlike the gems of Crash Bandicoot, but far smaller in size. The best way to describe them is by comparing them to the coins of Mario, but they don't grant you a life when you collect them. Every stage has a set number of gems, and to completely complete the stage as well as the game, you'll need to pick up every gem you see. Thankfully, gems are one and done deals, where if you die after you grab them, you'll still have them in your inventory. Gems come in different colors which correspond to their levels of quantity. Red gems are worth 1, green are worth 2, blue 5, yellow 10, and pink gems are worth a whole whopping 25. Plenty of gems are left out in the open, sometimes almost perfectly camouflaged among the landscapes, much to the dismay of your sense of completion, while others are in treasure chests. Most chests can be broken by either charging into them or flaming them, however a good bit are made of inflammable steel that can only be broken with a charge attack. Some of them are in sturdy chests so strong that even a charge attack won't break them, and they'll require some other means of bursting open, maybe a key you can pick up somewhere else in the stage, or by flaming a conveniently placed firecracker that will fly into the chest and blow it to pieces. The game never gives you a challenge without providing the means to face it, but it might make you look around and search for said means. Now, what are the gems worth? Honestly, in the big scheme of things, not a whole lot besides an occasional prerequisite to entering the next world, which I'll talk about later, and of course your overall percentage score. Some might argue that the game wants you to spend time collecting something that is ultimately meaningless, but here's how I look at it. I'm playing as a dragon, and what do dragons love more than treasure? And honestly, if I wasn't a dragon, do I really need a reason to pick up these gems? They're pretty, they're colorful, they're everywhere, and I found them. What other reason do I need? I know some people like the main collectible to actually have an in-game function, as it offers more of an incentive for bothering to collect them, and I get that, I really do, but the way I see it, this game is trying to put me into the mindset of its hero. Spyro is basically a little kid in this game with maybe not the best understanding of the big picture. This is what he knows. The dragons are his kinfolk, Nasty is a big doo-doo head, and gems are shiny. That's all the motivation he needs. There's something very satisfying about exiting a stage and seeing a crap ton of gems slide out of that stage's total box and into your grand total box. And after you've beaten every boss, including the Nork himself, freed every dragon, rescued all of the dragon eggs, and collected all 12,000 gems, all of which puts your game score to 100%, you unlock a special bonus stage called Nasty's Loot, which is literally just one giant playground filled with 2,000 gems, far more than any one stage contains. The max amount in any normal stage is 500. And this stage has nothing but yellow and pink gems, 10s and 25s, and considering how plentiful there are, this place is a dragon's dream come true. Enemies also turn into gems when you defeat them, as Nasty apparently made them out of gems. There are many different types of enemies. Most of them are Norks themselves, all of different sizes, much like Koopas in the Mario world being the same species as Bowser, albeit much smaller. However, there are enough non-Nork enemies too, like bulls, rams, wizards, and the likes. The enemies range in difficulty, some not being able to attack you until you get right up close to them, to some having long-range attacks that you need to watch out for. Also, different enemies may require different tactics to defeat. While most enemies go down easily enough with a charge or flame attack, some guys have metal shields or armor which protects them from your flame breath. Others are just too big to be charged. In many stages, you'll see a line of arrows along a downward slope. Charging down these arrows grants Spyro a supercharged ability for as long as you hold down the square button. It's a little hard to control, but it's so satisfying to be able to bust through enemies and obstacles that you wouldn't normally be able to. And in two specific stages, you can encounter cute little fairies who will kiss Spyro, temporarily increasing the power of his flame attack, allowing you to burn things that you wouldn't normally be able to. And lastly, environmental hazards can damage you, such as pools of water or lava, although I'm unsure as to why lava is hazardous to a dragon, a creature that literally breathes fire, but okay.
Do you know what the dragonfly following you is doing?
Oh, right, I suppose I should talk about him, huh? Well, his name is Sparks, and he's helping and protecting you. Will you shut up and let me talk? Sparks has two functions in this game. He follows you around and collects nearby gems, although you do need to get really close to them. I guess he's nearsighted. But more importantly, he serves as your health monitor. By default, he grows a bright, sparkly yellow. If you get hit once, he turns into a non-glowing but still sparkly blue. Take another hit and he turns into a dull green. Take another hit and he disappears altogether. At this point, not only will you have to physically touch every gem yourself if you want to collect anything, but one more hit will kill you. In every stage, you'll see some type of little animal, sheep, frogs, chickens, bunny rabbits, etc., usually in large groups. Killing these releases butterflies. Eating these butterflies causes Sparks to regenerate his health by 1 hit point per butterfly. Stages also have the crystal encased dragons to rescue. Simply touch a dragon statue to free it. The dragon will take a moment to talk to Spyro. The conversation goes anywhere from the dragons giving you hints and tips of the gameplay mechanics, to cheering you on as you progress further through the game, or just providing some cheap comedy. Some of my favorites are this dude in the Beastmaker's home world.
Spyro, it's great to see you, but I've got to go.
And this guy in Treetops. Just getting to this dragon was a complicated and frustrating ordeal the first time I played, and I was rewarded with this bit of dialogue.
That was quite a ride, Spyro. You've learned a lot since you were a young glider.
Yeah, well, you could have found an easier spot to get stuck.
It's like the game developers freaking knew. And if the dragons can't think of anything clever to say, they'll simply express their gratitude to Spyro.
Thank you for releasing me. Thank you for releasing me.
Thank you for releasing me.
Thank you for releasing me. Thank you for releasing me.
Thank you for releasing me.
Thank you for releasing
Thank you for releasing me.
Thank you for releasing me. Thank you for releasing me.
Thank you for releasing me.
Thank you for releasing me.
Oh no.
The game's counter says that there are 80 dragons to rescue, but to be more accurate, there's only 74. You'll end up saving 6 of them a second time in the final world. The game never explains this. No, seriously, Spyro takes note of it, but the dragon completely evades the question.
Hey, didn't I already free you?
You're in Nasty's world now, Spyro, and you are the dragon who must defeat him.
But I guess some of the dragons we freed took it upon themselves to try and stop Nasty themselves, and, well, we see how well that worked out for them. That's fine, maybe we should just let Spyro handle it after all.
I always believed in you, Spyro.
Freeing a dragon acts as a checkpoint, which, with this game's somewhat non-linear structure, doesn't seem like much, but it does prevent enemies you'd already killed from respawning after you die. Also, all dragon statues rest on these circular platforms, and when the dragon leaves, the platform remains for the rest of the game. Stepping on these acts as a checkpoint as well. What's more, this cute little fairy hovers over the platform, and if you talk to her, she'll let you hard save your game. The only other collectible are the dragon eggs, of which there are 12. In many stages, you may see a little blue dude running around.
He's a thief, and he's stolen a dragon egg. You've got to track him down and get that egg. Run! Run! I'm getting a little winded.
Chase him down and win the egg. Like the gems, these are one and done deals. I'm gonna be honest, the dragon eggs feel like an early idea that was soon overshadowed by other things as the game began to take shape and the developers just never got around to scrapping. There's 12 in all, but they're only in the first 3 worlds. Also, the eggs do almost nothing in the big scheme of things except for serving as the prerequisite for entering World 4. Collecting them is fun though, these thieves almost run as fast as you and it's pretty satisfying to take them out, especially after the way they taunt you from a distance. Oh yeah, who remembers that sound? I suppose if Spyro needs some kind of motivation, they're dragon eggs, his little brothers and sisters. It's really not too different than rescuing the Elder Dragons when you think of it. Definitely a missed opportunity, until Spyro 3 came along, that is. There are a total of 6 worlds in this game, including the final world. The first 5 worlds each have 3 stages, a bonus stage, and a boss stage. Each world has a hub area that serves as a junction point between stages. Interestingly enough, the hub worlds themselves are basically stages of their own. There's dragons to rescue, treasure to collect, enemies to defeat, and in some cases, dragon eggs to catch. Scattered throughout these hubs are archways with portals leading to a stage. Continuing with the whole non-linearity thing, most of these portals are just out in the open, and considering the hubs are more sandboxy than stages, you can do any of these stages in any order you prefer. The only exceptions are, in the first hub, the Artisan Home, in which you specifically need to beat at least one stage before you can enter the boss stage. But just to be clear, you only need to reach the exit portal of said stage. Yes, going into Stone Hill and immediately jogging over to the exit portal without collecting anything is enough to satisfy this requirement. The other exception is in the final hub, Nork Nexus, which only has 2 stages as opposed to the usual 3, not to mention the hub itself is ridiculously small. When you arrive, only the first stage is available. Reach the exit portal in that stage, and the second stage becomes available. Reach the exit portal here, and the boss becomes available. In all other worlds, the boss stages or bonus stages for that matter could possibly be the first things you do. Also in each hub is a guy with a hot air balloon who serves as your means to traveling to the next hub or revisiting previous hubs. These guys do require you to collect some number of something, treasure, dragons, or eggs before they take you to the next hub. These are the only prerequisites you need to meet before reaching the final boss and seeing the credits, similar to Mario 64, where the last thing standing between you and Bowser was the endless stairs, which required you to have collected 70 stars to not be endless. So for you speedrunners or non-completionists out there who just want to get to Nasty, all you really need are 50 dragons, 6,000 treasure, and 5 dragon eggs. Now this is only to reach the final area, and although it is theoretically possible to beat the game with these numbers, you still need to reach the exit portals in both Nork Cove and Twilight Harbor to even reach the big guy, and you'll most likely unintentionally pick up a few more gems during this time. This game definitely has the most unique style of boss stages that I've ever played. Like the hubs, these are not too different from stages. There's plenty of treasure to collect, basic enemies to defeat, and usually at least one dragon to rescue. The only difference is that there's a bigger enemy here who takes a few more hits to kill. These stages are definitely more linear, but even here there's a feeling of being in a sandbox. This even applies to the final boss, Nasty Nork, who at first looks like it's going to be much more like a traditional boss fight with him standing a few yards away from you, but no. To even reach this guy, you need to chase down 2 thieves who are holding keys so you can unlock pathways to even reach Nasty. And then you gotta chase him through 2 linear corridors with plenty of gems to collect along the way. The boss fights just feel much more casual in this game. That sort of sounds like a bad thing, but I appreciate it as it's something different. As for the bonus stages, okay, so you enter a sandbox arena built over water, which means you don't have too many places to stand. Thankfully, in these stages, Spyro can straight up fly. None of this gliding around bullcrap, he flies all over the dang place just like Star Fox in all-range mode. There are 32 items in each stage ranging from chests to break, rings or arches to fly through, planes to shoot down, lights to, well, light, and they're grouped by type in sets of 4. You have a time limit in each stage and your goal is to deal with every item before the time runs out. Thankfully, each item adds a second or two to the clock. I hate these stages. I think the general word is that most people like them. Insomniac seem to think, though, they included them in the next 2 games, but I just never could bring myself to enjoy them. That time limit is seriously unforgiving. Like, if you veer off the beaten path just a little, go ahead and drown in the water because you ain't completing this stage. Spyro's also not the easiest thing to control in these stages. Maybe I just suck. Yeah, that's probably it. Unfortunately, completing these stages gives you treasure, so if you're trying to get everything in this game, you need to do them. Once you've reached 100%, the final stage in Nork Nexus opens up, which is Gnasty's loot. As I explained earlier, it's just a big open area with a crap ton of gems. Like the bonus stages, you can fly here, but you don't have any time limit or objective, save for getting all the gems. Once you do, you can break the laws of mathematics with a big ol' whopping 120%. The graphics aren't too special, even back in the day. I think Crash 2 more than had this game beat. Some of these areas look rather bland, but in a strange way, that can sometimes help with the overall atmosphere. It's hard to explain, but in some of those majestic lighting sections, like in Magic Crafters, the bland and empty backgrounds really give off an immersive atmosphere. It makes me feel like I'm alone in this mountainous world and it's all mine to explore. I hate to be one of those gamers who says, graphics don't matter, because I will never scoff at pretty graphics, and that's obviously the main selling point of the Reignited trilogy for me, getting to experience these worlds with modern day graphics, but at the same time, I can be satisfied with this because the rest of the game elements more than make up for it. The only other thing that I can think of is, although the dragon models don't look that good in terms of texture and color, their animations are pretty good and their facial expressions seem lively enough, although this guy right here, yeah, I could have gone my whole life without seeing that. The music, man, the music. Ever heard of The Police? No, I mean the band from the 70s and 80s. Their first drummer and co-founder, Stuart Copeland, is the composer of this game's soundtrack. As a musician myself, I can safely say that there is somewhat of an inside joke that drummers are tone-deaf twits who know nothing about music beyond hitting things with sticks in perfect rhythm. But listen to this game's soundtrack and know that nothing could be further from the truth. Everything, from the melodies to the chord sequences to the selection of instrument sounds to the odd time signatures, everything is perfect. It's hard to label this as a specific genre. It's definitely got some rock elements in it, drums and guitars, albeit synthesized, but much of it is majestic and ambient and really adds to that atmosphere I was talking about. Some tracks like Stone Hill are incredibly atmospheric and intriguing. Other tracks like Town Square, Haunted Towers, or most of the bonus stages are very driving and upbeat. Some tracks like High Caves are grand and majestic, while others like Lofty Castle are groovy and funky. I don't know how to describe Dark Hollow except by saying it fits so perfectly with the nighttime atmosphere. Stuart is a guy who knows what type of mood he wants to capture and just does it. The theme of the first boss, Toasty, it begins with so much jeopardy and suspense, then just completely rocks out. It's one of my favorite tunes, but come on, I could say that about almost every tune in this game. Except for Terrace Village. That tune is boring. No other way to put it. The voice acting is quite good. Spyro's voice is supplied by Carlos Alazraqui, who also voices a few dragons here and there, along with Jamie Alcraft, Michael Goh, Michael Connor, and of course, Clancy Flippin' Brown. Man, I love this dude. He does so many different dragon voices in this game, and they all sound fresh.
Spyro, my friend, how about a hint on gliding? Hi, Spyro. Sparks the Dragonfly has been doing a good job protecting you.
Welcome to Wizard Peaks. This is my favorite supercharged spot. Use it to bash those wizards.
Nasty Nork is turning our swamp into an electrified junk heap. And it used to be so beautiful. I'll tell you what to do with those creatures. Smash them, Spyro! Stamp them out and squish them and squash them! I believe this is Nasty's treasure hoard. But the gate will not open until you have found everything in the Dragon Kingdom. Come back when you have reached 100%. Run! Run!
Some people know Mr. Brown as the prison guard from Shawshank Redemption, some people know him as Mr. Krabs from SpongeBob SquarePants, and I know him as Dr. Cortex and Uka Uka from the old Crash games. Whatever you know him as, you know he's flippin' amazing with such a belly of a voice that has tons of life in it. If you couldn't tell, I freaking love this game. I do think Spyro 2 is admittedly a better game, but this one just brings back so many wonderful memories for me. When you talk about Spyro, this is what I think of. Anyway, that's my review of Spyro the Dragon. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please consider checking out my other reviews as well. Also, I stream on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday at 8 o'clock Central Time, both here and on Twitch. If this interests you, please consider subscribing to the channel. And don't forget to check out my music on Spotify. In the meantime, have a fantastic rest of the day. Oh, and since I know you're all just dying to see this, there's a Peacekeeper's butt crack, and there's Spyro flaming said butt crack. Yes, that really was a thing in this game. This game was rated E for everyone, right? Okay, yeah, it was. Pieces.